As a teenager, I was captivated by the mysteries of the universe, especially the possibility of extraterrestrial life. This fascination was fueled by late-night documentaries, sci-fi movies, and countless hours spent on internet forums dedicated to UFO sightings and alien encounters. My bedroom, nestled in the quiet suburbs of my town, became a sanctuary for my curiosity. Posters of galaxies, planets, and of course alien spacecraft adorned the walls, while my bookshelf was crammed with volumes on astronomy and the paranormal. Every night, I would sit by my window, gazing at the stars, wondering if there was anyone or anything looking back. It was during one of these stargazing sessions that I stumbled upon a prediction that would change everything. An Australian psychic, known for her vivid prophecies, claimed that extraterrestrial beings would make contact with Earth on a specific day. The internet buzzed with excitement and skepticism, and I, caught in the whirlwind, marked the date on my calendar. Days turned into weeks as the predicted date approached. My anticipation grew, mingled with a healthy dose of doubt. After all, many such predictions had come and gone without incident, but this one felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was about to happen. I began sharing the prediction with my friends, most of whom laughed it off as another wild conspiracy theory. Still, I held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. As the day drew nearer, my nightly routines were filled with heightened anticipation. I spent hours peering through my telescope, hoping to catch a glimpse of something unusual. The night before the predicted event, I could hardly sleep. I lay in bed, mind racing with thoughts of what might come. Would they be friendly? Would they even show up at all? These questions danced in my mind as I finally drifted into a restless sleep, eager for what the next day might bring. The morning of the predicted day was like any other. The sun rose, and life in the suburbs continued its mundane rhythm. I went through my usual routines, all the while feeling a strange sense of expectancy. Every sound, every shadow seemed to hold the promise of the unknown. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness, and as the day turned to evening, my excitement gave way to a sinking feeling of disappointment. By nightfall, nothing had happened. No strange lights, no alien spacecraft, just the usual quiet of our suburban street. I tried to console myself with the thought that most predictions never come true, but the sense of letdown was hard to shake. I retreated to my room, the weight of unmet expectations pressing down on me. It seemed that the universe would remain silent, at least for now. Little did I know that the true encounter was yet to come, an encounter that would blur the lines between reality and the extraordinary. My journey into the realm of the extraordinary began with a late-night discovery on one of my favorite online forums dedicated to UFOs and paranormal phenomena. It was a post by an enthusiastic user who claimed that a renowned Australian psychic had made a bold prediction: extraterrestrial beings would make their presence known on a specific date. The prediction was detailed and sensational, citing a vision of alien spacecraft descending upon Earth, bringing a momentous event that would forever change humanity's understanding of the universe. The psychic in question had a cult following, known for her vivid and often accurate prophecies. Her reputation lent an air of credibility to the prediction, and the forum buzzed with excitement and skepticism in equal measure. I found myself drawn into the fervor. My curiosity piqued. The idea that we might soon have undeniable proof of alien life was too tantalizing to ignore. I bookmarked the post and began following the discussions that unfolded in the days leading up to the predicted event. As I delved deeper into the forms, I came across various interpretations and analyses of the psychic's vision. Some users speculated about the nature of the extraterrestrials, whether they would be friendly explorers or something more ominous. Others debated the likelihood of such an event occurring, citing past predictions that had failed to materialize. Despite the skepticism, a part of me clung to the hope that this time the prediction would come true. I marked the date on my calendar with a bold red circle and began counting down the days. The anticipation grew with each passing day. I shared the prediction with my close friends, hoping to find fellow believers among them. Most of them were dismissive, jokingly suggesting that I had watched too many sci-fi movies. Their skepticism did little to dampen my enthusiasm, though. I spent hours researching the psychic's past predictions, looking for patterns or clues that might lend further credence to her latest vision. The more I read, the more convinced I became that something extraordinary was about to happen. In the days leading up to the predicted event, I noticed a change in my routine. My nightly stargazing sessions took on a new sense of purpose. I meticulously scanned the skies, hoping to catch an early sign of the foretold visitation. Each unusual light or fleeting shadow filled me with a mix of excitement and anxiety. My dreams were filled with vivid images of alien spacecraft and otherworldly encounters, further fueling my anticipation. On the eve of the predicted date, I could hardly contain my excitement. I prepared a small notebook, intending to document every detail of the event should it occur. I double-checked my camera, making sure it was ready to capture any unusual sightings. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and possibilities. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by visions of the coming day. The morning of the prediction dawned bright and clear. The sun's rays filtered through my window, casting a warm glow across my room. Despite the ordinary start, my mind buzzed with anticipation. Every mundane task seemed to take on a surreal quality, as I wondered if this would be the day that everything changed. I went about my day with a heightened sense of awareness, every sound and shadow holding the potential for the extraordinary. As the day progressed, my anticipation turned to impatience. I constantly checked the sky, looking for any sign of the foretold event. Evening came, and with it, a growing sense of disappointment. By nightfall, the sky remained unchanged. No alien spacecraft, no extraordinary lights, just the usual stars twinkling in the vast expanse. I felt a sinking feeling of disillusionment. Perhaps it had all been a wild goose chase after all. Despite the letdown, I couldn't shake the feeling that the prediction still held some truth. I stayed up late into the night, watching the sky, hoping against hope that the event might still occur. Little did I know that the true encounter was just around the corner, ready to unfold in the most unexpected way. The day of the prediction arrived with an air of anticipation and unease. I woke up early, my heart pounding with excitement and a touch of nervousness. The date had been circled on my calendar for weeks, and now it was finally here. As I went through my morning routine, I couldn't help but feel like something momentous was about to happen. The day felt different, charged with an unseen energy. Despite my excitement, the morning passed uneventfully. I spent the day at school, unable to concentrate on my classes. My mind was elsewhere, constantly drifting to thoughts of extraterrestrial visitors and what their arrival might mean for humanity. I shared my anticipation with a few classmates, but most of them dismissed it as just another one of my wild obsessions. Their skepticism did little to dampen my spirits, though. I was convinced that this day would be unlike any other. After school, I hurried home, my heart racing with anticipation. I spent the afternoon in my room, glued to my computer screen, refreshing the forums and news websites for any sign of unusual activity. The hours seemed to crawl by, each minute stretching into an eternity. As evening approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and growing anxiety. What if nothing happened? What if it was all just a hoax? Dinner with my family was a quiet affair. My parents and siblings were unaware of the prediction that had consumed my thoughts. They went about their routines, oblivious to the significance of the date. I picked at my food, my mind elsewhere, my eyes constantly flicking to the clock. After dinner, I retreated to my room, my excitement giving way to a gnawing sense of doubt. As night fell, I sat by my window, my eyes scanning the darkening sky. The stars began to appear one by one, but there was no sign of anything unusual. The street outside was quiet, the familiar sounds of our suburban neighborhood filling the air. The minutes ticked by, and with each passing moment, my heart sank a little more. Midnight came and went, and still there was nothing. By now, my initial excitement had turned to disappointment. I felt foolish for having believed so fervently in the prediction. The forums were filled with similar sentiments, as others expressed their frustration and disbelief. Some users clung to hope, suggesting that the timing might be off, or that the event could still happen. But as the night wore on, even the most hopeful voices began to fade. I sat in my room, the glow of my computer screen casting a soft light in the darkness. The house was quiet, my family long since retired to their beds. I felt a deep sense of letdown. The prediction that had seemed so promising had turned out to be just another false alarm. I turned off my computer and climbed into bed, trying to push the disappointment from my mind. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder why I had been so taken in by the prediction. Was it my longing for something extraordinary to break the monotony of everyday life? Or was it the allure of the unknown, the tantalizing possibility that we are not alone in the universe? Whatever the reason, the day's events had left me feeling disillusioned and weary. Sleep eventually claimed me, my dreams filled with fleeting images of alien spacecraft and distant stars. I awoke the next morning with a sense of resignation. The prediction had come and gone, leaving nothing in its wake but a lingering sense of what might have been. Little did I know that the true encounter was still to come, waiting just beyond the horizon, ready to shatter my understanding of reality in ways I could never have imagined. The following day began just like any other. The sun filtered through my curtains, casting a warm glow across my room. The sense of disappointment from the previous night still lingered, but I tried to shake it off. Life had to go on, and I had school to attend. I went through my morning routine mechanically, my mind still occasionally drifting back to the unrealized prediction. By the time evening rolled around, I had managed to distract myself with homework and chores. The sky outside was a deepening blue, the first stars beginning to twinkle as dusk settled in. I had just finished dinner and was about to settle down with a book when I heard it, a noise so unexpected and loud that it jolted me upright. It was the unmistakable roar of an aircraft, but louder and more intense than any I had ever heard. My heart pounded in my chest as I rushed to the window. I fumbled with the latch, throwing it open to get a better look outside. The noise was growing louder, reverberating through the walls of the house. As I leaned out, craning my neck to see the sky, my breath caught in my throat. There, hovering just above the treetops, was an aircraft unlike any I had ever seen. The craft was enormous, a dark silhouette against the twilight sky. It had a sleek, almost organic shape, with strange symbols or runes etched along its surface that glowed faintly in the dim light. These symbols seemed to pulse rhythmically, casting an eerie light on the ground below. I was mesmerized, unable to tear my eyes away from the sight. The craft moved with a grace and precision that defied the laws of physics as I understood them. For a moment, I was completely paralyzed. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. This was it, the encounter I had been waiting for. But now that it was happening, I was overwhelmed with a mix of fear, awe, and disbelief. I felt as if I were caught in a dream, one where reality and fantasy blurred together in a way that made it impossible to distinguish between the two. As I stood there, frozen in place, the noise began to change. It shifted from a deafening roar to a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through my entire body. The aircraft started to descend slowly, its movements deliberate and purposeful. The glowing runes became more distinct, their patterns more intricate. I watched in awe as the craft settled just above the ground, hovering effortlessly. It was then that I snapped out of my trance. My instincts kicked in, and I knew I had to alert my family. I turned and bolted from my room, my heart racing. I ran down the hallway, shouting for my parents and siblings. My voice echoed through the house, urgent and filled with excitement. "Come quick, you have to see this, there's something outside." My family, startled by my sudden outburst, came rushing from different parts of the house. They followed me back to my room, where I pointed frantically out the window. As they crowded around, their reactions mirrored my own initial shock and disbelief. We stood there together, staring at the craft, each of us grappling with the reality of what we were witnessing. After a few moments, my father spoke, his voice low and tense. "Let's go outside and get a better look." We quickly made our way downstairs and out into the front yard, our eyes never leaving the strange craft. The noise had subsided to a gentle hum, and the air felt charged with an almost electric energy. As we stepped onto the lawn, the cool night air hit us, and we saw the craft more clearly against the backdrop of the darkening sky. In the distance, I noticed two other lights moving erratically, performing zigzag patterns across the sky. They were accompanied by what looked like fighter jets, their engines roaring as they pursued the mysterious lights. A third light, higher up and stationary, caught my attention. It resembled a star, but its sudden rapid movements whenever the jets approached set it apart. The lights and aircraft moved with a precision that was both beautiful and terrifying. We watched in stunned silence as the lights performed their aerial ballet, circling and darting across the sky. The experience was surreal, a moment where time seemed to stand still. Little did we know that this encounter was just the beginning, a prelude to a series of events that would forever alter our understanding of the world around us. As I stood there with my family, the cool night air wrapping around us, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The mysterious aircraft, hovering silently with its glowing runes, was unlike anything we had ever seen. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a surreal vision that seemed plucked from the pages of a science fiction novel. The runes on the craft's surface pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the trees and grass around us. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The hum of the aircraft filled the air, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through our bodies. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing the rhythmic pulsing of the runes. My mind raced with questions. What was this craft? Where had it come from? And most importantly, what did it want? My father broke the silence, his voice low and trembling. We need to get a closer look. He took a tentative step forward, his eyes fixed on the craft. The rest of us followed, our movements slow and cautious. As we approached, I noticed more details about the aircraft. It was sleek and seamless, with no visible seams or rivets. The runes, now clearer, seemed to be made of some kind of glowing energy, their patterns shifting and changing, as if alive. The closer we got, the more I could feel the hum vibrating through the ground beneath my feet. It was a strange sensation, like standing next to a powerful engine, but somehow more organic, almost as if the craft itself were a living entity. My younger brother, always the curious one, reached out his hand as if to touch the glowing runes. My mother quickly pulled him back, her face a mask of concern. Suddenly, the craft emitted a low, pulsating sound, different from the hum. It was almost musical, a series of tones that seemed to resonate deep within us. The runes brightened in response, their light intensifying. I felt a strange sensation, a tingling at the back of my mind, as if the craft were trying to communicate with us. I looked at my family and saw the same puzzled expressions on their faces. We were all feeling it, the sense that something extraordinary was happening, something beyond our understanding. As we stood there, transfixed by the craft, the two lights in the sky continued their erratic dance, pursued by the fighter jets. They zigzagged across the horizon with incredible speed and agility, their movements defying the capabilities of any known aircraft. The jets, though fast, seemed almost sluggish in comparison, struggling to keep up with the mysterious lights. The third light, higher up in the sky, remained stationary, its presence like a sentinel watching over the scene. Whenever the jets got too close, it would suddenly dart away, moving with a speed and precision that left us all in awe. It would then park itself in a new location, waiting for the jets to approach again. This cat-and-mouse game played out over and over, adding to the surreal atmosphere of the night. My father, ever the skeptic, tried to rationalize what we were seeing. Maybe it's some kind of military exercise, he suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. My mother shook her head, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. "No, this is something else," she whispered, "something not from this world." We continued to watch in stunned silence as the lights performed their aerial ballet. The craft on the ground remained motionless, its runes still glowing and pulsing with that strange, rhythmic light. The hum had become almost comforting, a constant reminder of the extraordinary sight before us. I felt a strange connection to the craft, as if it were aware of our presence and observing us just as intently as we were observing it. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the hum changed pitch, becoming more intense. The runes' glow brightened to a blinding intensity, forcing us to shield our eyes. When the light dimmed, the craft began to ascend slowly, its movements smooth and deliberate. It rose higher and higher, the hum growing fainter with each passing second. We watched in awe as it joined the other lights in the sky, forming a triangle with the third light that had been watching from above. The three lights hovered for a moment, their positions fixed against the backdrop of stars. Then, with a final burst of speed, they shot off into the distance, disappearing into the night sky. The fighter jets, unable to keep up, circled the area a few more times before heading back in the direction from which they came. We stood there in silence, the reality of what we had just witnessed slowly sinking in. The night had returned to its normal, quiet state, but we knew that we had experienced something extraordinary. The questions that filled my mind earlier now seemed even more urgent. What had we seen? What did it mean? And most importantly, what would happen next? In the aftermath of witnessing the mysterious aircraft, I felt an overwhelming urge to share what I had seen with my family. The moment the craft disappeared into the night sky, I spun on my heels and sprinted back into the house, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. My thoughts raced as I barreled down the hallway, shouting at the top of my lungs, "Mom, Dad, everyone, come quick. You've got to see this." My voice echoed through the house, startling my family out of their evening routines. My father emerged from his study, glasses perched on his nose, looking both concerned and curious. My mother hurried out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her face etched with worry. My younger brother and sister, drawn by the commotion, came running from their rooms, eyes wide with curiosity. The urgency in my voice had them all on edge, and I knew I had to get them outside before they missed the spectacle. "It's something incredible," I panted, my breath coming in short gasps from the excitement and the dash through the house. "You have to see it for yourselves." Without waiting for a response, I led the way back to the yard, my family trailing behind, exchanging puzzled glances. As we stepped out onto the lawn, the cool night air hit us, and the hum of the mysterious craft still resonated in the background. I pointed to the sky, where the two lights continued their erratic dance, pursued by the fighter jets. Voice trembled with a mix of awe and relief that the lights were still visible. For a moment, my family stood in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the sky. My father's skeptical expression slowly transformed into one of astonishment as he took in the sight of the zigzagging lights and the jets struggling to keep up. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in disbelief. My siblings, usually so quick to dismiss my wild stories, were rendered speechless, their eyes wide with wonder. What are those?" my father finally managed to say, his voice a whisper. The sight before us defied explanation, challenging everything we thought we knew about the world. "They're not from here," I replied, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "I think they're aliens." My mother's face paled, and she gripped my father's arm tightly. "Are you sure? How can you be sure?" Her voice was filled with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "I don't know," I admitted, "but look at the way they move, and those runes on the craft we saw earlier. They were like nothing I've ever seen before." My father, ever the pragmatist, tried to regain his composure. "Maybe it's some kind of advanced military technology," he suggested, though his tone was unconvincing even to himself. There must be an explanation. Before any of us could respond, the hum of the aircraft grew louder, drawing our attention back to the sky. The two lights had completed their chaotic dance and were now hovering in a triangular formation with the third light, which had been stationary but was now moving again, slowly descending toward the horizon. The jets continued to circle, but it was clear they were outmatched by the otherworldly precision and speed of the lights. We watched in awe as the lights moved in unison, their movements almost choreographed. It was as if they were communicating, performing some kind of complex aerial display for an audience of bewildered humans. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder of how little we understood about the universe and our place in it. The third light, which had hovered higher than the others, suddenly shot off in a different direction, moving with such speed that it seemed to vanish in an instant. The two remaining lights followed suit, darting away from the jets and disappearing into the night. The sky returned to its normal state, the stars twinkling peacefully as if nothing extraordinary had happened. We stood there, rooted to the spot, trying to process what we had just witnessed. My family, who had always been skeptical of my interest in UFOs and the paranormal, now looked at me with a new sense of understanding and, perhaps, belief. The encounter had shaken their skepticism, leaving them as bewildered and fascinated as I was. Finally, my father broke the silence. "We need to report this," he said, his voice steady, but filled with an undercurrent of urgency. People need to know what we saw. I nodded, knowing he was right. This was too important to keep to ourselves. As we made our way back into the house, my mind buzzed with the implications of what we had seen. The encounter had changed everything, opening up a world of possibilities and questions. Little did we know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge our perceptions and beliefs in ways we could never have imagined. Gathered on the lawn, we stood in a semicircle, our faces illuminated by the faint glow of the aircraft's runes and the distant stars. The night was eerily quiet, save for the hum of the craft and the occasional roar of the fighter jets, attempting to keep up with the enigmatic lights. The cool breeze rustled the leaves of the trees around us, adding to the surreal atmosphere. The sight before us was like something out of a dream, a moment that blurred the line between reality and the fantastical. We watched as the two zigzagging lights continued their intricate dance across the sky. Their movements were fluid and precise, defying the capabilities of any known aircraft. The jets, powerful as they were, seemed sluggish in comparison, their engines roaring in a futile attempt to match the agility of the lights. The lights moved in patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose, making sharp turns and rapid accelerations that no human pilot could endure. My younger brother, usually so full of energy and questions, was uncharacteristically silent, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. He clung to my mother's side, his small hand gripping hers tightly. My sister, standing next to my father, watched the lights with an expression of pure wonder. For the first time, I saw in their faces the same fascination and belief that had driven my own curiosity for so long. The third light, which had previously hovered high above, began to descend slowly, its glow intensifying. It moved with a deliberate grace, positioning itself just above the treetops. Unlike the other two lights, which darted about with frenetic energy, this one seemed to command a quiet authority. It pulsated gently, casting a soft, ethereal light over the landscape. The fighter jets, now clearly outmatched, circled at a distance, their engines whining in a mix of frustration and awe. As we continued to observe, the two erratic lights suddenly changed their behavior. They aligned themselves with the third light, forming a perfect triangle in the sky. The precision of their movements was astonishing, as if they were executing a pre-planned maneuver. The triangular formation hovered silently, the lights glowing in unison, creating a mesmerizing spectacle. It was a moment of quiet before the storm, a pause that seemed to stretch on forever. My father, always the skeptic, finally spoke up. This can't be real, he muttered, his voice filled with a mix of disbelief and wonder. What we're seeing, it defies everything we know about physics and aviation. My mother nodded, her eyes never leaving the sky. I don't think we're meant to understand it, she whispered, but whatever it is, it's beautiful. I couldn't help but agree. The sight was breathtaking, a testament to the vast unknown that lay beyond our understanding. It was a reminder of how small and insignificant we were in the grand scheme of the universe. As I stood there, watching the lights hover in their perfect formation, I felt a deep sense of humility and awe. Suddenly, the lights began to move again. This time, their movements were synchronized, as if they were performing a coordinated dance. They rotated in a slow, graceful circle, their glow intensifying with each pass. The hum that had been a constant background noise grew louder, resonating through the ground and vibrating in our chests. It was as if the lights were communicating, using light and sound to convey a message we couldn't understand. My sister gasped, pointing to the sky, "Look, they're forming something," she exclaimed. We all followed her gaze, and sure enough, the lights had begun to trace out a pattern in the sky. It was a series of geometric shapes, each one more complex than the last. Triangles, circles, and intricate symbols appeared and disappeared in a mesmerizing display. The runes on the craft's surface seemed to pulse in response, their light syncing with the shapes in the sky. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. Were the lights communicating with us? Or were they performing some kind of ritual, a cosmic dance meant to convey a message to anyone who could understand it? The possibilities were endless, and each one more fantastical than the last. As the display continued, I noticed the jets had ceased their pursuit. They hovered at a distance, their pilots likely as mesmerized as we were. It was clear they were outmatched and outclassed by the otherworldly technology before them. They had become spectators, just like us, watching in awe as the lights performed their celestial ballet. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the display ended. The lights returned to their original positions, the geometric shapes fading into the night. The hum subsided, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. We stood there, breathless and awestruck, trying to process what we had just witnessed. The triangular formation of lights began to drift slowly toward the horizon, their glow gradually dimming. The jets, recognizing the retreat, resumed their positions and followed at a respectful distance. The night sky returned to its usual state, the stars twinkling innocently as if nothing extraordinary had happened. We watched until the lights were nothing more than faint glimmers on the horizon, disappearing into the vastness of space. The experience had left us shaken, yet profoundly moved. It was a reminder of the mysteries that lay beyond our understanding and the incredible possibilities that the universe held. As we made our way back inside, my father spoke again, his voice filled with a newfound respect for the unknown. "Whatever that was," he said quietly, "we may never understand it, but it's clear that we're not alone." His words hung in the air, a solemn acknowledgement of the encounter we had just experienced. It was a night that would stay with us forever, a night that had expanded our understanding of the universe and our place within it. Little did we know, this was just the beginning of a journey into the unknown, one that would challenge our perceptions and beliefs in ways we could never have imagined. The departure of the mysterious lights left an eerie stillness in the air. The hum that had reverberated through our bodies was gone, leaving only the quiet rustle of the night. We stood on the lawn, our eyes straining to see the last glimmers of the lights as they disappeared over the horizon. It felt like the end of a dream, the kind that leaves you questioning reality when you wake up. My father broke the silence first. "We need to report this," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "People need to know what we saw tonight." His words echoed my own thoughts. This encounter was too significant to keep to ourselves. It was a piece of a larger puzzle, one that might help others understand the mysteries of the universe. We hurried back inside, the adrenaline still coursing through our veins. My father grabbed the phone and began dialing the local authorities, while my mother sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling slightly. My siblings and I gathered around, still buzzing with excitement and curiosity. As my father spoke to the dispatcher, describing the events of the night, I noticed how his voice had changed. The usual skepticism was replaced with a tone of awe and conviction. After hanging up, he turned to us. "They're sending someone over to take our statements," he said. "In the meantime, we need to write down everything we remember. Every detail could be important." We all nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. We sat around the table, each of us recounting our version of the events, trying to capture every moment accurately. As we wrote, my mind drifted back to the encounter. The image of the triangular formation of lights was etched into my memory, as vivid as if it had just happened. The strange runes, the hum, the geometric patterns in the sky, all of it felt surreal, yet undeniably real. I wondered what the lights were, where they had come from, and what their purpose might have been. Were they trying to communicate with us? Or were we merely accidental witnesses to their activities? The sound of a car pulling up outside snapped me back to the present. The authorities had arrived. 2 officers stepped out, their faces a mix of professionalism and curiosity. They introduced themselves and explained that they had received several similar reports from other residents in the area. This revelation sent a shiver down my spine. We weren't the only ones who had seen the lights. Whatever had happened that night, it had been witnessed by many. The officers took our statements, patiently listening as each of us described our experiences. They asked detailed questions, probing for specifics that might help explain the encounter. We shared our observations about the lights' movements, the patterns they formed, and the mysterious aircraft with the glowing runes. The officers took copious notes, their expressions growing more serious with each detail we provided. After they finished, one of the officers spoke to my father privately. I could hear their conversation, but I saw my father's face grow more somber. When they finally left, he gathered us all in the living room. "They don't have any answers," he said quietly, "but they believe us, and they've promised to investigate further." The days that followed were a whirlwind of speculation and reflection. News of the encounter spread quickly through our small community, and soon the media picked up the story. Reporters came to our house asking for interviews and trying to piece together the events of that night. We watched as our story became part of a larger narrative, one that captured the imagination of people far beyond our town. Despite the media frenzy, life gradually returned to normal. The sky, once filled with the promise of extraordinary encounters, returned to its usual calm. Yet, the experience had changed us all. My father's skepticism had softened, replaced with a sense of wonder and curiosity. My mother, always the believer, felt vindicated in her faith in the unknown. My siblings and I, now sharing a bond forged by the encounter, found ourselves more attuned to the mysteries of the world around us. Vissa sägs din stämmande stund, och att det sista och rättedinen sensi.